Quite a familiar tree. This is beech, Fagus sylvatica. Tends to be associated with free draining sites, free draining soils, so people will associate it with chalks and limestones, but it will grow equally well on sands. How do we identify beech? Well, there's a couple of things to look at. Alternate bud arrangements, and if I just take a couple of these leaves off just to reveal the buds a little more clearly, it becomes quite obvious that the buds have a really distinctive physical form and arrangement. They're sharp and pointed, so this is next year's buds that will produce the leaves for next year's, and they're held at a very wide angle to the stem. So they're alternate, so they go up the stem, and they're held at this very wide angle. They also remind me of spurs or something like that, sharp pointed and at a wide angle. If we look at the leaves themselves, they are relatively flat. They have a wavy pressed edge rather than a proper serrated edge that you'll see on some of the other species. And if you hold them up to the light, they're almost translucent at this time of year. As we move into autumn, these leaves tend to stay on the beech until relatively late, and they will obviously turn, in a proper autumn, they'll turn a beautiful golden brown colour before they're shed. You'll often see beech leaves retained on young trees and on clipped beech hedges. Sometimes the leaves will stay right the way through the winter, but on mature trees they'll just go through the autumn colour change and then they'll be shed. So a thin, almost translucent leaf, wavy edge rather than a serrated edge, and I think in terms of ID characteristics, and this is useful when the leaves are off in the late autumn and winter, just try and tune into this very distinctive bud arrangement, sharp, pointed and held at a wide angle. Timber qualities, beech, traditionally used a lot for furniture, for the sort of framing, what they call the carcassing, the inside sections of furniture that you don't often see. A lot of that material is now imported from France and Germany, and there's less demand, I guess, for English beech these days. At the lower end of the market, beech makes great firewood. Clean, bright, hot firewood, burns really very, very well. One of the weaknesses of beech, I'm afraid, in the 21st century is it's very vulnerable to damage by grey squirrel. They'll strip bark from the growing stem and branches of trees until they girdle them, and the branches or the tops will actually snap out of the tree and compromise its growth. So I'm afraid it's quite vulnerable to grey squirrel damage, and you'll see lots of beech that's carrying grey squirrel damage, but still an important part of our landscape going forward.